So Gail, thanks so much for joining this conversation with us. You've spent more than 25 years at Goldman Sachs, where you helped design and implement the whole firm's global HR function at firm and public, leadership development, diversity, management excellence. You've been at Pearson leading it through its digital transformation as SVP of HR, and led CaaStle's global expansion as CPO. Really excited to have you here in this topic because you've lived through a whole bunch of different cycles around sweeping tech transformation. And I know that you're advising and working with a lot of both startups and HR tech companies on navigating this next one. And so today, what I was really eager to dig into with you is around one of the hottest questions that I keep coming into contact with: how to actually drive AI adoption. So Gail, welcome.
Hi, Lexi. Thrilled to be here. Been topic du jour as well for me. So really excited to be sharing the conversation with you.
So you and I were talking recently about that MIT report that 95% of AI projects are failing. And I know you've talked about the world entering this new world entering the trough of disillusionment. Tell me a little bit more what you're seeing and where you see some of the failure modes are. What do you think this 95% failure rate is coming from?
Yeah, I was actually referring to Gartner's hype cycle framework, right? Which isn't new, didn't just get created in the context of AI. It's been around for a long time to help put some context and structure around past, tech transformations. But it essentially starts with some innovation trigger, right? A potential tech breakthrough. So today, that's an AI, right? The next phase is the peak of inflated expectation, and exactly what that sounds like. And I kind of believe that's where AI is today, right? You can't have a conversation personally or professionally without talking about AI, right? What are you using AI at home for? Oh, my kids, baseball schedule. What are you using AI now at work for? It's everywhere, right?
Yep.
And there's plenty of success stories, but I think with every success story, maybe there's 2x of failures or not launching, not taking off, which is what I think MIT's research study is showing. Yep. So after this inflated expectations, you come to the trough of disillusionment, and there's certainly signs, right, that AI is there, right? Maybe like early adopters are kind of have a very small trough of disillusionment, but that's a small, percentage, right? So the MIT says, projects are failing primarily, I think, due to learning gaps, right? And what's the best way for companies and individuals to use AI, understand the impact it has on the jobs in the organization, how to do those jobs, and what the organization ultimately looks like. And as I've been talking to, many these companies that are AI native product companies, they're really seeing this. It's really becoming a challenge. It's tough to get past those early adopters. I think the companies and founders are realizing they need to spend more time, which they probably don't have, on helping adoption and educating companies on the best and most effective way to use the tool, how to get the most out of it.
And I'm really excited to dig into this question of how do we, as founders and as people leaders, really facilitate that change management, that user education. I think a lot goes into how effective a rollout will be is determined a lot by how it's presented, how it's out, and how it's supported. You can't just give people a tool and expect a whole set of behaviors to change. Before we get there, though, I want to go personally. Because one of the things people might not know about you is that before your 20 years in HR, you actually started your career as a software engineer. And you have a fascinating story about time early in your career when you were automating systems for a global ops. Tell me that story and sort of some of the early lessons that you picked up that have stuck with you through your career.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was probably my first significant project as a software developer, right? I was working with a global operations team on automating very manual, very paper intensive, think triplicate trading tickets. So, definitely people like, what? um, and I was embedded. I sat with the team. I was learning who they were, how they worked individually, what they were doing, taking other experiences and improving things, designing new workflows, designing new terminology, like something called exception handling, right? In some sense, I was that AI bot back then, right? Taking the inputs in, looking at other experiences and new tools and coming out with something new and different, more efficient and better.
Yeah.
So I went for drinks one night after work, and I walked into the bar and like, oh, the Terminator is here. Oh my gosh.
It's hard to hear, I'm sure. What did you take from that?
Yeah. I mean, still human, right? I was devastated. I was devastated. I think you used the phrase change management just a little while ago. And, we did that many, just to diverge slightly from a moment on the, why AI is failing, why 95% of every transformation probably failed in the beginning was because of change management. No one likes to do that last mile, right? It's hard. And I didn't know those words back then, but I think what I was realizing is that I had to figure out, first I'd looked at myself and said, am I listening effectively? Am I communicating effectively? But I really ultimately had to figure out a way how to bring people along in this process and help them. I needed them to also come up with some ideas and new ways of doing things. And the other thing, probably this leans into a little bit of what became then the beginning of my HR career. I also was able to identify the people that I had a feeling were going to succeed in the new way, in the new world, and those that were not. And I was able to work with the leaders of this group to identify that and set those people up. And really, the other thing was that there was this fear, and you kind of see it today, right? And I think a parallel to today is that people think technology is eliminating their jobs. But it's not that. It's people who could adapt and know how to use the system most effectively will eliminate their jobs. And, I think in this regard, this is where AI is just like another tech transformation. Lots of parallels to the information age, internet, digital transformation, blah, blah, blah. But it's just faster, more democratized.
Yeah. It's helpful to remind us all that, we've been here before, we've gotten through it, and we've learned a lot in the process. And I think historically and now, right, everyone is so busy that what we are asking people to do is a wholesale shift in the way that they work. In many cases for the better, right? You can automate a lot of the stuff that you don't like doing. You have to spend the time learning how to do it. And in a world where you don't have any time to do that, it can feel super daunting. And there's all this fear that's mixed into it. And so the two pieces that I'd love to tease out here are one, do those lessons from the past, which, we're talking here to CHROs, been in many cases through similar transformations that you have been and been through that journey. Are there lessons, or to what extent are there differences between sort of these past transformations and today's? So like how transferable are the lessons? And two, to get into something a little bit practical, like, we're in the middle of this now. We're facing this world where some people are really excited, but a lot of people, are a little bit over the AI hype, and there's a reaction to it. What do we do in this moment that we can learn from before?
Yeah. So I do think AI will have a profound impact on the workforce and how organizations are designed and how they operate. This is probably simplifying things a little bit, but you could think of some of the past transformations were focused on, process improvement, like the one I described in my story, or, technology leapfrogging older technology like distributed computing, replacing the mainframe, and new skills were coming out, related in engineering there, or new innovations that's fundamentally changing consumer behavior, like Amazon, right, eliminating the middleman. But I think so. We definitely learned from those. But I think one way that AI in this moment is uniquely different is AI questions what humans still need to do.
Good.
Right. And so therefore, really understanding what those key critical skills or sustainable skills that are going to help humans adapt, right? And that are uniquely human skills, things like critical thinking and problem solving, are going to be, absolutely necessary, both, to interact with AI.
So I think it's a really interesting place to go. And you sort of cued in earlier that you were able to tell who are the people that are going to be most successful and who are not. And that sort of leans into this question that I get asked a lot about, like, okay, how should we be preparing the workforce? And there's a fascinating study that I came across the other day that looked at a 20,000 skill task taxonomy of jobs. It's a government database of 1,000 different jobs across the economy, and they basically pulled out. It was also from MIT. They pulled out what types of these tasks are automatable. What type of these tasks can AI actually do or not? And sort of discovered or in their research came to sort of 5 core segments of capabilities that humans are uniquely good at, which is sort of speaking to what you're articulating. And you were this like empathy piece of create. Humans are uniquely good at creating trust, and tasks that require presence, like human presence, like an ambulance driver, are more likely to be unique to humans, and ethics questions and creativity and what they call hope, but really aligning people towards a future worth pursuing.
Having a vision.
Yeah, and having a vision. That really resonated with me, this task orientation and sort of building on the critical thinking piece that you're articulating. Yeah. So like the 2 questions are like, great, for CHROs sitting in this seat, knowing that,
right.
Are there things we can practically do either to develop those skills or find people with those skills so we know that they're going to stick around?
Yeah, but what I was going to say is, like, there's been an age-old struggle between HR leaders and executives on emphasizing these skills, right? Nobody's about, they got to know this specific way to, this coding language or, this, analytic model, right? Just to get in. And chances are someone coming in with that will sit, what I call butts in seats, and get up, be productive, but that will probably end, maybe not long-term or even medium-term productive if that's all you're looking for. And so, for a long time, HR leaders are saying, look, you've got to find talent based on these core, sustainable skills and develop that. Right? And I think because we're in this now moment where AI is necessarily saying these are the skills that are going to be the most successful, puts HR leaders, in the driver's seat, right, to help organizations reframe their talent, reframe how they assess and recruit and develop, right, along those lines.
So what does that look like at the practical level? Like if for someone sitting in that seat now and thinking about, great, I know the skills that I need to be developing within the company to be productive long term. What do I do about it? How can I use AI tooling to sort of support me in that journey?
So I think the first thing that probably needs to happen is for the HR leader to lead the organization around a discussion on what are those core competencies and prioritize, right? For argument's sake, let's say systems thinking, right? Is, what a company decides. It has to be, in order for the change to happen, it has to be embedded in their culture, right? In their ways of working and how they assess and manage and review performance. And then then you have to communicate and articulate it so employees really understand what they're shooting for. And I think that's where AI tools really kind of come in, right? Obviously, on the front end, you have a bunch of AI native products coming on the recruiting and the assessment. And then once, you're looking at developing people, AI coaching could really accelerate how quickly those critical skills are understood, used, adopted, right? Almost like a flywheel.
All of these tools are only as good as people's adoption of them.
Right.
And so we know that AI coaching can be with you in the moment, driving behavior change in a way that no other form of learning could have in the past, right? It was absent the context of your real-time experience in a different way. But cool, if no one uses it, no good. Recruiting tools can dramatically increase the efficacy of, or like sales coaching tools or anything else can dramatically increase the efficiency and efficacy, but only if people use it. And so what sort of lessons can you pull from having that ring a couple of times?
Yeah.
Like get people to use the thing.
Yeah. I mean, you do need to have some incentives, right? And that could be, in the form of, compensation or other performance incentives. One thing we did way back when at Goldman, when we were building out the Bangalore office, right? It was an adoption, right? We needed teams to think broadly and differently about how they were, again, running their teams, hiring, developing, changing their processes if they have people over in India, people in, the US and all that. And it was, back then, it was a big change. So one of the incentives was if you need headcount, you can get 2 to 1. That was very effective, right? So I think, or maybe it was 3 to 1. I don't know. But it was effective because it forced, the incentive was real and forced people to think differently. And so, I think coming up with, some ways to help organizations, managers, and employees to adopt these things, think about what's in it for them? What are they going to get out of it?
You're actually reminding me of something that I've seen Zapier do particularly well these days. And if anyone listening to this looks at Google, you can sort of pull this out. But they've done a very good job of articulating new sort of performance standards for what AI native adoption looks like. And basically like building it into the rating system for performance reviews, which I love this idea of like, how do we set up the infrastructure to provide the incentives so that this is no longer an optional piece. This is a sort of, I meant before,
build it into your talent, prioritize it and build it into your talent framework, right? It could be the skills, but also that, how are you using the AI tools? But also that, how the famous 9-box, right? Is a framework for performance and potential. It probably is still fine, performance and potential, but I think what companies and HR need to do is define what is performance and potential in the context of the human AI collaborative, right? It's different. And, and that's taking the old and the new and putting it together.
I love that. Rethinking what these common frameworks like the 9-box can offer us, and creating a new sort of AI first,
Line box.
new AI first processes, but a new AI first 9-box. I love that. Well, so maybe this is a good segue to ask, like, it's very clear to me that the role of HR is changing as it relates to the sort of shift in the market as a whole, and how we think about workforces. And you have, I talk about this a lot, we have digital labor joining the org chart, AI employees coming. You hear Mark Benioff saying he's the last CEO to manage only humans at Salesforce. and it's maybe exaggerated, but like I love this idea that AI is going to be a teammate in a much more reasonable way. And so then thinking about managing teammates in that performance and potential 9-box, like, as a new meaning. In any case, because digital labor is here to stay, that has traditionally been the purview of the IT team, right? And I'm starting to see the emergence of this role of VP of AI transformation. You're seeing IT Canny at ServiceNow, like, merge AI and merge the role of AI and HR and people and AI enablement officer or something like this. How, this is a huge opportunity, actually. For HR leaders to step into a space to really rethink and understand their role as it relates to both human employees and soon AI employees. What is that? What could that look like? How?
Maybe I'm a little kind of, I would say, but maybe I'm just informed by my own past experience here, and I don't love the idea of like AI transformation officer, because that's the same technology transformation officer. It's just going to be everywhere.
Sure.
Right? Just like years ago, there was a debate to have your diversity teams separate from your HR teams. My philosophy has always been no, because you're just going to have double effort and shadow organization. So I like to think that HR should model itself after a product organization.
Say more.
When you think about what product teams do, right? It's about experience, right? Not just process, right? There's process underlying it, but it's coming from what's the experience that we want people to have, right? It's agile, right? And so you very rarely see a product team where there's just a product person in a silo, right? Right? They think about themselves as having product management or product development capability that could be applied in multiple ways. So I think modeling off of product in some ways, maybe it's now, becomes people product.
Yeah.
Right.
I've started to see that title emerge more in the past year, which is sort of interesting. So to keep the focus on adoption, how would that mean people would need to act differently if HR really embodied that product lens?
How HR would work differently?
Yeah, and if we were all adopting that product lens, how would that mean that we would drive adoption with AI tools to make sure that they were effective and not, in the 5%, not the 95% of that MIT.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, I think just like with products and building products, you're looking for product market fit, right? You're constantly evolving. How something is being used, right? And kind of, iterating, kind of go back to that, agile framework. Skills, journey maps, right, are also good ways to help personas. All these are like tools coming from product that could be applied to employees and the experiences you want employees to have.
Sure. I love that thinking here. To take this one step further, I want to get specific about results too. You know, talk about sort of aligning incentives behind all of this. We're driving towards adoption and engagement. Some value that is accruing towards the business. That's, we don't implement AI for the sake of implementing AI. We implement AI because it solves a real problem. In our case, like learning historically hasn't driven actual learning. Or training hasn't driven learning, and so there's sort of new ways to think about how we deliver that. I'm curious how we should be thinking about metrics and what we should be driving at to prove ROI. Any concrete examples you have to help think through how people should be approaching this transformation in a metrics-driven manner.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Here. Yeah, I kind of go back what I mentioned earlier is that I think this is where you need to prioritize and align the skills and the adoption criteria, right? Which is something I think maybe that's a new thing we need to be thinking about. What is the adoption criteria, right? And that gets built into the measurements, right? Yeah. Performance measurements and potential performance kind of rubric. And that has to be predicated on that adoption is going to drive business results.
Perfect.
Right. So where it kind of, again, goes back to why I think HR needs to think about more like a product person, right? Because that's exactly what they're trying to do is, drive business results. So it's all kind of, folds together. And again, and that's where the incentives come in.
Because I'm hearing you talk, I'm realizing that we've focused a lot on the stick side of the incentives, the performance side. Hey, if you, performance is dual-sided, right? You can get
dual-sided, yeah,
bonuses, but also don't do it. Maybe that's an opportunity to manage people into better performance or catch them up. But I'm curious if you have any other concrete ideas around carrots that might help, or framing that might help people through that adoption journey. One thing that comes to mind actually is another study that I heard about in the legal world, where two offices of lawyers were given AI and given two remits. And the remit in one office was, hey, use this to make yourself more productive. Here's what it does. Here's all this cool stuff. The remit in the other office was use this to get rid of all the stuff you don't want to do. You don't want to stuff.
You don't like to do.
And then they ask people about actual productivity gains. And the latter was such a higher rate. I don't remember the exact numbers in the study.
Yeah.
But there's something interesting there of what other carrots or mechanisms to drive adoption that might help in addition to the performance aspect.
At the end of the day, employees are like, what's in it for me, right? Yeah. So if I could eliminate the things that I don't like to do in my day job, that's going to be motivating. So I do think that's a really good way of doing it. I also think making sure innovation's rewarded appropriately. Right? Not just sort of maybe an outcome that this, some innovation is going to have, result in a product you're taking to market, but it could be anything, right? It could be innovating within your team, right? And innovating on how you're adopting AI and what that means. One of the things that I did probably about 18 months ago, so it was like, AI is moving so fast. This was, really early in its life, was ran a hackathon.
Yeah.
And it was really about trying to take the fear away. People were like frozen, not knowing, what to do. And it was with my team, it was with the people team. But we invited IT to kind of participate in the readouts of the ideas that came up, because we didn't even have an enterprise. We didn't pick an enterprise product even, and the result of that hackathon was we need to get enterprise products, for the company to use, right? And it really kind of, stimulated that in a way that was fun and innovative, and people felt really good. And all of a sudden, then all the ideas, came by, and it came out of that. On some of it was just, how do I get rid of the things that I don't like to do? And some of it was, how can I make the employee experience better, or the onboarding experience better by using some of these new AI tools? And how do I learn from it? It really opened up people's minds. And I think when we were looking at that for, giving feedback to people, those things were cited because innovation was an important cultural value. So you kind of need to align some of those incentives back to what I said earlier around the company's culture, and some of these things may need to evolve with AI as well.
The thing I like about that, Gail, and I've started to see a number of other companies do something very similar and AI hackathons, is that it moves people's headspace into a space of play as opposed to fear. And it's hard to be afraid when you're playing. And it's hard to be as afraid when you have more exposure. And for folks who are particularly busy, just the sort of carving out of this time and the sanction, hey, this is time where you can only focus on this thing of learning AI, building new tools for yourself, creates both the feeling of play and fun, but also gives people the exposure that, this is not so bad.
It also gives people agency.
And it gives people agency. That's right. I love that example. I'm glad we teased that out. So I wanna close us here by looking a little bit into the future. In this conversation, you are positioning HR to move from what sometimes has been a support function to being a key transformation leader, as it has other times, right? Thinking like a product leader, being a key element of driving adoption. And so I guess looking forward a few years, what does success look like for a CHRO or team who gets this right? What do folks who are listening need to do to convince their board or CEO to invest in this sort of people-first approach to AI?
Look, I think the first thing, is success in this space is giving optionality for the CHRO to broaden its remit, right?
Sure.
It could be, head business strategy, right? It could go into how do you link people and talent success to revenue?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe even have P&L related to that. And especially when you think that teams, as you kind of said before, are going to be both, digital and human teammates. I think HR, again, is in a pretty good position to be able to manage that, and they could be revenue generating. So I think it opens the door. It also opens the door for, maybe I was a little bit unusual coming from tech into HR. Maybe in the future the product person is going to go into HR, right?
Great.
Or an engineer will go into HR, right? And you'll see a little bit more, crossover, which I think is just good all around. So I think that's one, if things are successful, I think that's maybe one outcome. And, I think CHRO sitting in the C-suite, we typically, buddy up with the CFO, right? Because CFO has the wallet. That's important. You need to do that. But I think the trifecta is the chief, CHRO, the chief product officer, and your CTO, right? I think that getting a great coalition going across those those three areas is very powerful for an organization, and not common, right? So I think that's, as a CHRO should think about that, right? Who they're working with, what opportunities they could have to work with the chief product officer or their CTO, particularly. One doesn't have to be AI, but it could be on anything, and build that future together. I
really like that reorientation. I think that's a great place to leave it. So thanks for sharing some wisdom here.
Thanks for having me.
Some hard-earned wisdom over the years. And we're long past the Terminator. I think we're
long past. I thought so. And train, so many of them. Sequels.
All right. Thank you so much, Gail. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.